Right now, somewhere on Earth, 1 billion people are lighting something on fire and breathing the smoke into their lungs. Some are alone, some are in groups, some are doing it out of habit. Some are doing it as part of a ritual older than any country on the map. And almost none of them are asking the question that should stop everyone cold. How did this start? Not tobacco, not cigars, not any of the modern versions. The actual beginning. The first time a human being, on purpose, held smoke in their lungs and thought yes. More of that. Because here is what nobody tells you. Smoking is ancient. Older than agriculture. Older than the wheel. Older than writing, cities, religion, and every civilization you have ever learned about in school. By the time the first city was built, smoking was already a tradition so old that nobody alive could remember when it started. And the reason it started has almost nothing to do with tobacco. It has to do with fire, and with what fire does to a human brain. Go back, not a few hundred years, not a few thousand. Go back 1 million years. There is a cave in South Africa called Wonderwerk. Inside that cave, archaeologists found something remarkable. Burnt bone, burnt plant ash, concentrated in one spot, not from a wildfire that swept through, from a fire that someone built, sustained, and controlled inside a cave deliberately 1 million years ago. The creature sitting beside that fire was not you. It was not even your species. It was Homo erectus, an earlier human. Smaller brain, heavier brow, gone from the earth for hundreds of thousands of years, but sitting beside a fire in the dark, just like you would, and breathing the smoke. Every single ancestor who ever sat beside a fire inhaled smoke. Every day. For hundreds of thousands of years. It was not a choice. It was simply what the air was. Wood smoke was the original atmosphere of human life. But not all of that smoke was just wood. When organic matter burns, you do not just get carbon dioxide and heat. You get a chemical cocktail, a complex mix of compounds that shifts completely depending on what is burning. And some plants, when they catch fire, release molecules that do something specific when they reach your lungs. They cross into your bloodstream, they travel to your brain, and they change something. Researchers have pointed out for decades that early humans living across Africa, Asia, and Europe would have regularly found themselves downwind of burning cannabis, wild tobacco relatives, and other psychoactive plants that grew naturally in their environments. When that smoke drifted into a prehistoric campfire and into the lungs of whoever was sitting nearby, something happened that had never happened before. Their pain softened. The noise in their head quieted. Something heavy lifted. And the brain, which is very good at noticing things like that, took note. Your brain has receptors specifically shaped to respond to cannabinoids. These did not evolve because of cannabis. They are part of your endocannabinoid system, a network that regulates mood, memory, appetite, and pain. But those receptors respond to the compounds in cannabis smoke as if they were designed for it. Because in a very real sense, the plant and the human brain evolved alongside each other for millions of years in the same ecosystems. When they finally met through smoke, it was not a surprise to either of them. So picture the moment. A tired hunter at the edge of a fire. A dry cannabis plant nearby, catching an ember. Smoke drifting over. And for the first time in this person's life, without any warning and without any understanding of why, something shifts. The ache fades. The fear quiets. The world feels unexpectedly manageable. They have no idea what just happened, but they remember it. And the next time they feel that smoke, they lean in instead of pulling back. That is almost certainly how intentional smoking began. Not with a ceremony, not with a plan, with an accident that felt too good to ignore. Repeated across thousands of fires and thousands of years and thousands of people until someone finally decided to stop waiting for the accident and start making it happen deliberately. The entire history of smoking, the rituals, the medicine, the industry, the addiction, all of it may trace back to one tired person leaning toward a burning bush in prehistoric Africa because it made them feel better than they had felt all day. History is strange and beautiful in exactly that way. Now, the archaeology can only take us back so far, and it is worth being honest about why. Organic material does not survive. Stone tools from 3 million years ago are everywhere because stone does not rot. But a reed pipe, a leather pouch of dried herbs, a wooden bowl with plant residue inside, these things dissolve back into the earth within a few centuries under normal conditions. The absence of ancient physical evidence for smoking does not mean smoking did not happen. It means the earth does not keep good records of things made of wood and plant matter. What we do have is already extraordinary. The oldest confirmed evidence of deliberate cannabis inhalation comes from the Pamir Mountains of Central Asia, a burial site dating to around 500 BC. Archaeologists found wooden braziers containing superheated stones coated with cannabis residue. Not wild cannabis used for rope or fiber. Cannabis with unusually high THC content. Specifically selected, deliberately placed on hot stones inside an enclosed burial space, breathed in by the people performing the ceremony. 500 BC, that is 2,500 years ago. And the sophistication of the practice at that site tells you clearly that it was not new. It was established. It had been going on long enough to become ritual, to become the kind of thing you do to honor your dead. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, wrote in the 5th century BC about Scythian nomads on the Eurasian steppe performing what he called a vapor bath. Small tents, stones heated until they glowed red, hemp seeds thrown onto the stones, the participants inside breathing and, according to Herodotus himself, howling with pleasure. Historians ignored him for centuries. They assumed he was exaggerating. Then archaeologists excavated Scythian burial mounds and found exactly what he described. Bronze braziers, heated stones, hemp residue. Herodotus was not embellishing. He was reporting, he was possibly underselling it. Tobacco runs on the same ancient logic, but on a different continent entirely. Tobacco is native to the Americas. It was completely unknown to Europe, Africa and Asia until 1492. When Columbus arrived in the Caribbean, he wrote in his journal about indigenous people carrying small glowing sticks and drawing smoke through their mouths and noses with the ease of lifelong habit. His crew watched in total confusion. His crew also tried it within weeks, because of course they did. But tobacco in the Americas reaches back far beyond any European ship. Chemical residue from tobacco has been identified in ancient pipes dating to at least 3,500 years ago in the southeastern United States. Some researchers place the origins of deliberate tobacco cultivation in the Amazon basin at 10,000 years or more. And in 2019, researchers announced a discovery at a 12,000-year-old hearth in the Great Salt Lake Desert in Utah. Among the ash of that ancient fire, they found seeds of a wild tobacco species, concentrated, deliberately placed, not scattered by wind. This is the oldest direct evidence of humans bringing tobacco and fire together intentionally, and it predates any known pipe or pottery in the region by thousands of years. Whatever was happening at that fire 12,000 years ago, it was not an accident. Here is what matters about tobacco in the ancient Americas. It was not recreational. Tobacco was sacred. It was medicine. It was diplomacy. Blowing smoke on another person was an act of blessing. A shaman who smoked was not relaxing. He was working. The smoke was understood as a living thing, a carrier, a messenger moving between the world of the living and whatever lay beyond it, carrying prayers in one direction and bringing visions in the other. That understanding kept tobacco use disciplined and restrained across many indigenous cultures for thousands of years. When something is sacred, you do not use it carelessly. You do not chain smoke it while staring at nothing. The idea of tobacco as something you reach for out of boredom is not ancient wisdom. It is a product of European industrialization. It is barely 2 centuries old. Ronald Siegel, a psychopharmacologist at UCLA, spent years studying what he called the fourth drive: hunger, thirst, sex, and intoxication. His argument was that the desire to alter consciousness is not a habit or a weakness or a cultural invention. It is a biological drive, embedded in animal behavior at a level that predates human civilization by an enormous margin. Elephants seek out and return to fermented fruit. Dolphins pass pufferfish between themselves in what researchers describe as deliberate intoxication. Reindeer in Siberia eat psychoactive mushrooms and then consume the urine of other reindeer who ate them because the active compounds survive intact. The drive to alter consciousness is not a human invention. It is an animal behavior. It is old, it is persistent, and it suggests that whatever function it serves, It serves it well enough to keep appearing across millions of years of evolution. If that drive is real, then early humans were not stumbling into psychoactive smoke by accident and immediately forgetting about it. They were noticing, they were remembering. They were choosing certain plants, certain campsites, certain fires, because they had learned through painful and sometimes fatal trial and error which smoke did something worth doing and which smoke left you coughing in the dirt. That knowledge accumulated silently across generations. It was never written down. It was demonstrated, shared, passed hand to hand and mouth to ear, around fires in the dark for thousands of years before anyone built a wall or carved a word into stone. Smoking is also medicine, and this part of the story gets overlooked almost entirely. The Ebers Papyrus is one of the oldest surviving medical documents in human history. Written in ancient Egypt around 1550 BC, it describes the deliberate inhalation of smoke from heated herbs as treatment for conditions of the throat and lungs. The logic, strange as it sounds today, is not entirely wrong. Smoke reaches the lungs directly. If the plant has pharmacological properties, delivering it through inhalation gets it into the bloodstream faster and more completely than almost any other method. The ancient Egyptians were not being foolish, they were being practical with the tools they had. Hippocrates wrote about herbal vapor inhalation as treatment for respiratory disease. Ancient Indian Ayurvedic texts describe a formal medical practice called dhumapana, smoke drinking, with specific plants, specific conditions, specific protocols refined over centuries. Ancient Chinese medicine documented therapeutic fumigation in careful detail. In every early civilization on record, in every corner of the world, people were putting smoke into their bodies deliberately and calling it medicine. And sometimes it worked. In a world without antibiotics or surgery, sometimes it worked was a meaningful bar to clear. We still use inhalation as a medical delivery mechanism today. Asthma inhalers, anesthetic gases, nebulizers. The logic survived. The burning part mostly did not. And then there is the part of this story that may matter most and gets discussed least. Humans evolved in groups. Group cohesion was not a social preference, it was a survival requirement. Isolated individuals died. Groups that trusted each other lived to have children and grandchildren. Anything that reliably deepened the bonds between people in a group had direct evolutionary value. Shared rituals involving altered states are extraordinarily good at building exactly that kind of trust. When people undergo a profound shared experience together, something changes in how they relate to each other afterward. Modern neuroscience has measured this. Shared rituals synchronize neural activity, increase oxytocin, and deepen group identity in ways that last long after the experience ends. When a group of ancient humans sat together in a closed space and breathed smoke that changed their perception collectively, that was not entertainment. That was the mechanism by which cautious strangers became people who would follow each other into danger without hesitation. The smoke circle was not a party. It was infrastructure. It built the trust that built the group that kept everyone alive through another winter. So when did humans first start smoking? The honest answer is that we do not know exactly, and we almost certainly never will. The physical evidence reaches back 12,000 years with confidence. The behavioral logic points back much further. The drive that underlies smoking, the desire to alter consciousness, to share ritual experiences, to use inhaled compounds as medicine, is almost certainly far older than any object yet dug from the earth. It may be as old as fire itself. It may trace all the way back to the cognitive moment that made us human in the first place. The ability to connect cause and effect across time, to look at a burning plant and think, last time that smoke reached me, something changed. What if I made that happen again? That is not addiction. That is intelligence. That is the same mental move that eventually led to agriculture, to medicine, to science. The recognition that experience can be repeated, that the world responds to intention. What we know for certain is this. By the time the first city appeared anywhere on Earth, Smoking was already ancient. The knowledge was already deep. The rituals were already formed. Every civilization that left written records left records of people inhaling smoke deliberately. They were not inventing something new. They were continuing something that had been going on so long that no one alive could remember the beginning.
There is something almost moving about that thread of continuity. All the distance between you and your oldest ancestors. The medicine, the cities, the technology, the noise of modern life. And yet, there is a line that runs straight and unbroken from a fire in a South African cave 1 million years ago to a bonfire on a beach tonight. Same smoke, same human lungs, same brain noticing what the smoke does and deciding what to do about it. The oldest humans breathe the same smoky air you would smell if you sat beside a fire right now. Some of them started paying attention to what that air was doing to them, and then they started choosing it. And that choice, made and remade for 100,000 years, became ceremonies and medicines and rituals, and eventually an industry that spanned the globe. It all started with someone leaning toward the smoke instead of away from it. You would have done the same thing.